Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, on the issue of conflict of interest, I know at the amendment stage I would like proper elaboration, but I know when the jailer committee will table a report, we should also look at their report so that we look at the definition, what is conflict of interest. It should not only look in the public, even somebody who is a chief or Mukasa that was, or a lecturer or a pastor, Mr. Speaker. You know there was a pastor who was taking a due advantage. That video went viral, and he's saying they were chasing his spirits in some areas that I cannot mention because this is PG. It is parliament-guided event, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, on the issue of unexplained asset, this is very important. I know there is well declarations that we normally do as public officers, but we want these issues to be taken seriously. So, Speaker, somebody cannot tell us today that he is worth $1 million, but after staying in an office 2 to 3 years down the line, is a dollar billionaire, Mr. Speaker. As a country, we must take these issues seriously. Every wealth, even if you buy a watch, a car, a property, what anyhow much, Mr. Speaker, we must tell us as a public official. Because in this country, we are aware of people who are using their offices to enrich themselves, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, we cannot be gerrymandering on the issue of serious on the fight against corruption. So, Speaker, ESCC has been given a function. So, Speaker, I have little faith in ESCC. You know, I've sat in county public accounts. Senator Ledama has sat in public county accounts. A number of my colleagues have sat in county public accounts. We have made many recommendations, Mr. Speaker, for other bodies like ESCC, Mr. Speaker, to do follow-up, to prosecute governors, county officials who continue to leverage our resources, Mr. Speaker. It is very unfair. In fact, I am aware that ESCC might be struggling with capacity, with issues of resource allocation, but they have never shown a proof, Mr. Speaker, to tell us what they have done. The last report when I was the jailer, Mr. Speaker, you was truly in the last issue. The only conviction ESCC had achieved when they tabled the report in that year, and it caused a huge uproar in the floor of the House, was convicting somebody who had taken a bribe of 20,000 shillings somewhere in Eldoret. So, Speaker, the fight of any election can be, not election, sorry. The fight, you know, elections are still very far. The fight against corruption, Mr. Speaker, and larceny and graft and plundering of natural resources will only be won if one or two. I remember there was a gentleman who told us at that time that he was not going for small fish or omenas. He was going for big fish. He ended up nothing on the plate, Mr. Speaker. It is very unfortunate. So the fight against corruption, with this enriching of this bill that has been pondered by Senate Majority Leader Aaron Cherargei, is a bill that should be supported by all and sundry so that we fight corruption in this country, Mr. Speaker. And I want to challenge ESCC. Most senators here tell us, and even when we work in the villages, I have seen the motion by Senator Ledama Olakina on pending bills. How can pending bills be there when you go to National Treasury, money has been dispersed? It means it has been stolen. So what is ESCC doing about it? Nothing. When they are reported, they go and call the governors or anybody who has been accused of corruption and see them Numa attend. Mr. Speaker, we are even aware on COB control of budget. And I want them to come clean. Where a county makes a requisition, the controller of budget tells them what do we want to do, they give a schedule, then they release money to the county after paying certain percentage. And that is why most of the workers, we are having allegations that some of the controller of budget staff are now owning houses in Karen, Runda, Kileleshwa, because they are colluding, and even Dubai, they are having private summer homes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, because they are colluding with county governments to release money that are made under requisition. And the controller of budget, not herself, but some of her officers are going rogue. And that is how governors are misusing and plundering resources. So what is ESCC doing about it? Nothing. I saw them releasing a report yesterday saying, I think they say Nyamira is leading in bribery, which county is leading, which ministry is leading in bribery or corruption allegations. But after releasing a report, what next? The ESCC has never told the country what they are doing in the fight against corruption. Yet, under the Constitution, they have an obligation to fight corruption in this country. Mr. Speaker, we have many laws in the Fight Economic Crimes Act, Mr. Speaker. We have many laws against the fight against corruption. The chicken must come home to roost. when EACC will tell us what they are doing in Machakos, in the fight against corruption, in Kitui, in Makueni, in Nandi, and I told you last time, Nandi is the headquarters of corruption. There is a lot of blundering happening here and there, but EACC have done nothing. We have reported a number of occasions, Mr. Speaker. But what the EACC does, they go and smile to the camera with the governors and officials, then they say it's under investigation. Mr. Speaker, and I want to challenge here and DPP, the new DPP and EACC, we must show seriousness, Mr. Speaker. When we go, the other day we have visited a number of counties, Mr. Speaker. I know we'll be visiting Meru soon. When we go there, people will ask here, money has been stolen, so what have you done as a Senate? Our work is to make recommendations. The people who to implement is EACC and DCI. But what are they doing? There is a weak link in the fight against corruption in this republic, and I hope with the conflict of interest bill, Mr. Speaker, it will assist. Then on the powers investigation, I think EACC has enough powers. This EACC is a creation of the Constitution. They are supposed to do their job as per the Constitution. They don't need to get anybody's permission to do their job. What is the perception that people believe that EACC must get orders or phone calls? It is them who, in fact, the fight against corruption, my colleague members, in counties to be precise, will not be won so long as the biggest stumbling block in the fight against corruption is EACC. They have never done something. They can contravene what I've said. They can give us statistics on how many corruption they have found. We remember even in Siaya, under the former county government, where air tickets were being paid for private individuals. No one has been prosecuted in Siaya. We went to Turkana, the same thing, 100 billion cannot be accounted for. A number of occasions, Mr. Speaker. So as a country, as we pass this, I have mixed feelings. Because we have enough legislation, but there is nothing to show for what we have achieved as a country in the fight against corruption. Mr. Speaker, I agree with, of course, declaration, standing order 104, conflict of interest, Mr. Speaker, conflict of avoiding our obligation, Mr. Speaker. The third point is, I wanted is preferential treatment, that is more than obvious, and due influence, that is...
Sorry, I can see there is an intervention, meaning a point of order from Senator Maratian Ezena. What is your point of order, Senator?
Mr. Speaker, I think Senator Cherargei should substantiate the claims that EACC receives phone calls. Thank you.
Senator Cherargei.
Mr. Speaker, I thought as if they are receiving phone call, as if. I'm guided by the answer if it is contrary, because I say as if they are receiving. As if is maybe. I didn't say shall. So I think that is what I meant. Mr. Speaker, and I thank my sister, Mr. Speaker, you know, she is doing a good job. And maybe she wants something in Samburu County in future. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of gifts and other benefits, I think this is a law that was there, of economic crimes in 203, you pass. At least you have been around these corridors and you know this law. Where you are given gift, even as a speaker, if we welcome you, I don't know at which level, you know, when you come to my home and I give you as a friend, I don't know whether you should declare, because I can give you a cow. That is the highest respect in my community we can do. So I don't know whether you'll donate a cow to the Senate or what happens because you are a public official. Those are some of the issues JLAC, through Senator Sigei, will give us a headsway as we progress, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on complementary treatment, we are aware there are some organizations, when they need tenders, they sponsor. I remember the issue of tobacco scandal, and may the soul of the late Jacoyo Midiwa rest in peace. And you remember that committee was taken by tobacco to Mombasa for treatment, so that they could pass a law that was impeding the issue of tobacco companies. And I remember the images where members of parliament were swimming along the beaches of Mombasa, and I know Senator Miraj understands what those Mombasa beaches and what happens there. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of contracts with public entities prohibited, I think under open governance, and I want to ask members, when we will be launching a caucus for open governance program, Mr. Speaker, which you sanction OGP, I want to invite members to attend that breakfast meeting on 16 so that they can learn what we mean by what we call beneficial ownership of companies, contribution obligation, and the fight against corruption. Mr. Speaker, you have to note, Senate has taken a lead in having what we call Senate disc on open governance program. And I know senators who are here understand what OGP means. We are trying to push for accountability, legislative integrity, legislative openness, and Mr. Speaker, contractual obligation and benefit of an ownership being open through open governance program. And I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, and your office for allowing that caucus to be established. I know these are some of the things we have been pushing in that caucus to ensure that we have what we call obligations, Mr. Speaker. Most where corruption happens, Mr. Speaker, is during procurement processes. I think that's where corruption starts from. I remember there was a CS, not a CS, an ambassador of America, I don't know his name, I forgot. He said Kenya loses around 700 billion through budgeted corruption. I don't know, it was around 2020, I think an ambassador of US, he made it in media. So Speaker, we need to be careful, and I remember when we were looking through budgetary process and many others, so that we look at it, procurement is where issues happen, Mr. Speaker. In conflict of recruitment, I know whenever KDF and other people are recruiting, Mr. Speaker, we hear parents complaining that they are paid 300,000, 200. You have seen even here in Eldoret, RTS training school, here in Eldoret. You normally see before reporting of the recruits, you see a number of young people being taken to court because they are fake recruitment, KDF recruitment letters. I'm happy it has been captured to protect our people who, Mr. Speaker, they unknowingly give out 100,000. I know the Bribery Act says punish the briber and the bribee. Punish the bribing, the briber and the bribee, Mr. Speaker. I know that's what the Bribery Act is. The one who gives out and the one receives. The bribe, Mr. Speaker, the English there is a bit problem, but I know members understand what I mean. It is the one who receives and who takes, the law punishes them equally. Mr. Speaker, on the conflict, Mr. Speaker, on the conflict of interest and the recruitment, Mr. Speaker, finally, Mr. Speaker, allow me to say this in support of this conflict of interest bill. Mr. Speaker, government officers should be aware that part of the work we do is to openly, and the courts have ruled, Mr. Speaker, any public officer is subject to open criticism and constructive criticism, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you are aware I'm in court for only representing my people and speaking out and raising serious issues, Mr. Speaker. The law has ruled, and senior counsel like Danson Mahanso will agree with me, and even our junior learned friends, Senator Rafael Chimera, will agree, Mr. Speaker, that any public official does not have limitation, Mr. Speaker, in terms of criticism. So I find it odd and weird that if Senator Cherargei can be sued for speaking about roads.
From
okay.
Senator Chimera.
Make it quick.
Speaker, I rise on standing order 105, Mr. Speaker. I rise under standing order 105, Mr. Speaker. Is Senator for Nandi, Senator Cherargei, factual by stating that I'm his junior in practice, Mr. Speaker. He was admitted the other day, I think in 2020, Mr. Speaker. I have practiced law for over 6 years, Mr. Speaker, so he's actually my junior, Mr. Speaker, and not what he's trying to say, Mr. Speaker. Whatever he's saying is misleading the House, Mr. Speaker. Can he clarify, Mr. Speaker? I'm actually your senior in practice. And withdraw and apologize, Mr. Speaker.
Maybe I request both of you to bring your certificates of admission so that I can make the determination. But if you,
Mr. Speaker,
if I use my eyes physically, you look junior to him, but maybe not academically.
Mr. Speaker, I can't get factual. So on the statement of Act 105, since I don't know when he was admitted, allow me to withdraw that part called junior and call him my learned friend. Mr. Speaker, but you don't need to question Justice and Legal Affairs Chairman Emeritus, Mr. Speaker, because by the fact that I'm the Chair Emeritus of JLAC, that surpasses anything else, Mr. Speaker. It means I've seen a lot in the practice, and I'm senior. In fact, under LSK, I should have been given senior counsel by the virtue of being a JLAC Emeritus Chair when this country was undergoing a lot of challenges, including the issue of BBI. And we stood tall, Mr. Speaker. My oversight. I know that suit, Mr. Speaker, is trying to intimidate and cow me not to oversight the work people are doing. But we are going to come back better, bigger and with a bang, Mr. Speaker. I want to assure you, take my word, Mr. Speaker. With those very many remarks, I beg to support this bill and see the fruition, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
You see, and I take your one to the bank. Okay, before we proceed with the debate on this bill, I want to give the chair, the chair Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, to table the report on this bill, so that